Hey guys, so today I thought I'd give my very rough thoughts on Warhammer 40k and what I think the best race in Warhammer 40k is objectively. And now when I say objectively, I mean objectively. Like this race is the best race according to my opinion, and my opinion is fact because my opinion is better, it's just better than yours, okay? Stop asking questions. Okay, so let's start off with like our first race and the most famous race, obviously, humanity, and that's the Imperium of Man. And you know what the funny thing is? It's like GW itself hates the Imperium of Man. I mean, like every part of the Imperium of Man has to be grimdark. Like no part of the Imperium of Man is like actually good, actually how a human being would act. Like all the parts of humanity in the Imperium of Man are so exaggerated. Like the ecclesiarchy is just insane, fanatical people that they'll burn you for saying like one heretical thing. Like they'll just burn you alive, burn your entire family alive for no reason except you said one like heretical thing. Like you said maybe the emperor isn't so cool. They'll just burn you alive. And then you have the Inquisition, and their slogan literally means, the slogan is literally innocence proves nothing. So like, yeah, those are the kind of people we're talking about. It's like GW hates the Imperium Man themselves. It's like make them as grim dark as possible. Like have no human traits anymore. It just makes them look ironically alien to like how actual human beings act. So it's, it's kind of funny to me. Also about the Imperium Man, I really hate the overuse of the Ultramarines. Like, oh my god, just Ultramarines is just blue, 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 and that stupid toilet seat looking symbol that they have. Like, there are so many interesting loyalist and chaos space marine chapters out there. So many so many cool things that they do. But literally the Ultramarine, that's it. That's all that seems to get the attention by GW. I mean, I guess it's because that they sell the most. They're the most best selling. But like, come on, there are other Space Marine legions, other Space Marine Primarchs exist, other cooler people exist other than just the Ultramarines. I definitely put the Imperium Han in like number two spot. The number one race, I'll talk about it later. I'm not just going to talk about it in the beginning like that. I need my watch time. I need it. No, I'm like serious. Like name one thing about the Imperium of Man, and there'll be probably something grim, dark origin story behind it. Like name, like what do they eat? They literally eat other humans. It's called corpse touch. Like the Imperium of Man, they don't even eat normal food. They just eat themselves. They just eat the dead people around them in all these big ass hive cities. They just starch the corpses, turn it into some kind of paste, and just eat it. Like, oh, what? Even the food in the Imperium of Man is grimdark. Name literally any part of the Imperium of Man, it's going to be grimdark. It's insane. Doesn't mean it's not cool though. It's really, really cool. I mean, sure, it's really oppressive and really sad to live in, and I wouldn't ever want to go to this place in real life, but it's pretty cool. 10 out of 10. But this grimdark part of the Imperium of Man is also its like biggest weakness. Like, it gets really boring. Like, we get it. It's dark. It's scary. It's horrible to live in. Like, yeah, what else do you have? What new thing do you have? This is like the 50th. This is like that Jimmy Neutron. This is the 50th grimdark thing that you've come up with, Games Workshop. Like, have some new aspect to the Imperium of Man. Like, have something new to show us instead of the just grim darkness. No good Imperium. Like at least like show us some good parts of the Imperium. Like give the good parts of the Imperium some attention. Like the Salamanders, Space Marines. They're pretty nice to the civilians. And I literally cannot remember one good thing about the Imperium of Man. Like what good thing do these people do? I'm surprised that literally the entire Imperium of Man has a dissolve date somehow. Like the plot demands it, I guess, I know. But like seriously, this government would not exist in real life. It's just this terrible. My favorite race, at least. But let's just say it's the best race in Warhammer because, again, my opinion, it's the best. Stop asking questions. And I think you probably guessed it already. But It's the Tao. The Tao are my favorite race. Now I know what you're thinking. Aha, the Indian guy likes the race with the castes. You can laugh later, but let me explain why I think the Tao are the best race in Warhammer 40k before you call me a weeaboo. I think the Tau are ironically the most human race in Warhammer 40k. I think the Tau represent what humanity would be like if it actually went through something like this. If it actually went into like this setting of Warhammer 40k. Like if tomorrow humanity just got teleported, like this earth got teleported into like the Warhammer universe, this is how we would react, the way the Tau react. Like we would try diplomacy with the orcs, we would try to talk to the dark elves and try to make a deal with them, even though they're idiots who can't be dealt with. And ironically, I would argue that the Imperium of Man is actually way more alien to us modern day human beings than the Tau. I mean, the Tau are just humanoids, aliens with like blue skin and no holes in their heads and horse feet, but like they're ironically way more human than the Imperium of Man. I mean, the Tau pretty much stand for like normal human ideals that even we could stand for in today's world. They just want like the greater good. They want to assimilate all the other races peacefully into their empire, and they just want what's best for everyone with like the least amount of casualties. Like that's something that us human beings could literally be trying to do if we were in the Warhammer universe. We wouldn't just try to like kill everyone that like the Imperium of Man tries to do on the like regular basis. Also, the fact that the Tau advanced so fast in like just a few thousand years is also really interesting. Like it took humanity millions of years to advance to that stage, and it took the Tau like a few thousand years to get faster than like spaceships and like a huge military that was enough to like make a dent in every other major faction that's been around for millions of years. I mean, call me an idiot, but I really like the underdog, and there is no other underdog in the Warhammer 40k setting like the Tau. They are young, they're like scrappy, they're not afraid to fight people, but they also will lend you a hand if you want them to. And I don't know why people call them communists. I mean, they're not communists, they're literally the exact opposite of communism. If anything, the Tyranids are the most communist race in Warhammer 40k because they're all controlled by like one central hive mind, and they all fulfill their own means of production. Like the Tyranids are way more communist than the Tau. Like the Tau are like democratic socialist. Like this is what Bernie Sanders America looks like. The Tau Empire. That's it. Also like their weapons that they use, the Tau use actual tactics, like actual firing lines and kill zones and armored mecha suits that's fire plasma bullets and stuff. Like the Tau use actual tactics when they're fighting people. Like they just don't crash into people with overwhelming numbers like the Imperial Guard and the Tyranids and the Orcs and literally everyone else. The Tau have to be smarter than that. The Tau have limited resources but very advanced technology on average compared to every other faction. That's what makes them really interesting. So objectively and thematically, that's why I think that the Tau are the best race in Warhammer 40k. Can I get my Tau girlfriend now? And then we have the Orcs. Now, the Orcs are definitely one of the most interesting races in Warhammer 40k, and they're definitely the most funny. I mean, they are designed to be the comic relief of the series, and they're supposed to be something different and interesting. I mean, what sci fi series have you seen that includes Orcs and Elves in the same setting? This is something new that GW is doing. I kind of like it. It's a new look at the sci-fi genre. It's one of the main things that I like about Warhammer 40k. But here's what I don't like about Yorks. Nothing. There's nothing I don't like about the Orcs. The Orcs are just fun. They are fun. I do not blame you at all if you like the Orcs. If you think the Orcs are your favorite race, I do not blame you. I I think the Orcs would have been like in the orcs were literally, I was fighting with myself over this decision to like make the orcs the number one race, or should I just, my favorite part about the orcs is that anything they believe, it just comes to life. Like if they think together random pieces of scrap metal like a crackhead, it just works. It's a tank. It just snap your finger, it's a tank. Like what, that's just hilarious. They just put together like this random piece of scrap in some order, and just it just becomes a tank. They just believe it's a tank, so it becomes a tank. That's just how it works. And if someone else tries to drive it like a human being or something, it just falls apart. Like this is just hilarious. That is the perfect comedic relief. Is, and it's also like literally the most powerful thing in fiction. Just casually makes it the orcs like incredibly powerful, and also really really scary. Like what if the orcs just were tricked into thinking that their guns could fire black holes, and just they just start firing black holes at everyone, and the entire galaxy just gets consumed. That like that could literally happen. That's how silly these orcs are. Now, but seriously though, my least favorite part of the orcs is that their skin is green. I'm not being racist. I'm not being racist. Just shut up. They're not real. They're not a real race. I can't be racist against a fictional race, but I don't like the color green. Yeah, I'll be honest. The green color is literally not my favorite. Every time I see the color green, I get reminded of Shrek. And these orcs literally bore me. Like, it's just a sea of green. Like, it's just boring to me. There's no change in their color scheme. Like, there's at least one dab of green in literally every orc painting or every orc drawing. Just green, green, green everywhere. Like it's just boring to me. That's one of the many things that made me bump down the orcs to like number three spot on my favorite race of Warhammer 40k. But hey, if they really did have purple orcs, that would make the orcs the best race in Warhammer 40k. I'll be honest. Now, editor's note in the middle of this video, like a lot of you people are going to ask what you think about the leagues of Wotan. And my answer is I literally don't care. I literally don't care. They're just space dwarves. I mean, I like dwarves, but they're just space dwarves. That's it. That's all they are. If you want to know, I they're just my favorite because they're dwarves. That's it. There's nothing really interesting about them to talk about. So yeah, that's what I think about the leagues of Wotan. Bye. And then there is chaos. Now I know that chaos is like there are multiple chaos representing factions. Like I know there are like the chaos space marines, and then there are like the four chaos gods and all of that. Like it's just, and then there are like the dark elder and stuff. Like no, 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 no. Let's just group all of that. Let's just make it the chaos. Like let's just make it chaos. This faction chaos. And now the existence of chaos is kind of counterintuitive. Like I'll tell you why it's counterintuitive. The existence of chaos is literally just to be evil, just to be evil for evil's sake. But then newsflash, dumbass, literally everyone in Warhammer is evil. So it's just varying degrees of evil. Like no one in Warhammer is a good person or a good faction. Like everyone is evil. Everyone is killing each other. Everyone is committing genocide and war crimes on a daily basis. And the chaos, I guess the chaos faction is just committing genocide and doing war crimes on a much bigger basis to like make it more evil than everyone else. Like okay, I think Chaos only exists as like a fifth faction for all the other evil factions to like focus on and like, become like a punching bag for. It's like perfect. It's like the perfect punching bag for everyone. Like the Orcs hate Chaos, so they fight Chaos. The Orcs want a good fight. They fight Chaos, and the Tau fight Chaos too because like, there's nothing good coming from Chaos. The Imperium obviously fights Chaos. The Eldar also obviously fight Chaos. Like everyone just gangs up on a Chaos. And Chaos is like winning. Now this brings us to like the four Chaos gods. And it's like the rotty one, the angry one, the horny one, and the scheming, conniving one. And they're all like they exist. They're one of the Chaos gods. That's it. There's nothing unique. There's like nothing interesting about them. They have pretty easy to understand motives, and that's on purpose, like they're just different aesthetics of like the same thing. There's just different aesthetics of the evil that the chaos represents, and that's just I then, like if you want the rotting kind of evil, then you choose Nurgle. If you want the horny kind of evil, then you choose Tlenils. And if you want the angry type of evil, which is like the classic hell type of evil, then you choose Korn. And if you want the weird nonsense kind of evil, then you choose Sinch. I mean, I never got the appeal of Sinch. He's just confusing for the sake of confusing, and he's just boring as hell. There is literally no reason for him. Like, I guess Sinch represents true chaos, then I guess. He's, I guess, the most important one for them all, you know, because he's like 100% chaos. Like, everyone else has patterns, everyone else. The Corn is the angry one, Nurgle is the pestilence, disease one. Like, no one knows what Zinch is up to. He's always just scheming and conniving. Like, he is literally true chaos in chaotic form. So I guess Zinch would be my favorite chaos god because he just represents what chaos is objectively. But overall, I wouldn't say that chaos is my favorite faction. I'd put it on like number five. Like I put it, the chaos is my least favorite faction. I'll be honest. No, actually, there's at least one faction that's my least favorite. I'd put it at my second least favorite faction because like they just we get it. They just want chaos. Like chaos wants chaos. I guess it's not a very interesting motive to have, and it's kind of boring for like the sixth time. This brings us to the elves. The elves. So, I mean, what do you want me to say about the elves? Like, honestly, you're a weirdo if you like the elves. Like, no offense, but like, what could you possibly like about the elves? Like, I don't get it. I've tried playing the elves, but it's like so boring. Just the elves are just boring. I never liked the elves in like any fantasy setting or any sci-fi settings. The elves are like one of my least favorite races. Even in like the Total War Warhammer games, the elves are like my least favorite race. The dwarfs are my favorite race in the Total War Warhammer games, and the Age of Sigmar series. They're like my favorite faction, the dwarfs. But the elves in Warhammer and in Warhammer 40k, least favorite. Like I couldn't be bothered with these people. They are so boring. I mean, we get it. They are literally the copy and paste version of the Lord of the Rings elves, except they're a little bit more arrogant and a little bit more snooty, I guess. And they kind of accidentally birthed the god of horniness into this world by being absolute degenerates. And the Dark Eldar are just evil. Like, why would you like the Dark Eldar? Like, why would you think that this is a faction that you should be representing? There's just something wrong with you if you like the Dark Eldar. Like, you're a weirdo. No offense, you're a weirdo. Go back to whatever BDSM dungeon you came from, you weirdo. And ironically, the Eldar and the Dark Eldar have pretty much the same goal, which is like to restore the Eldar's population in the universe and like remove Slanesh's influence on their race, where like every time an Eldar dies, their soul just gets snatched by Slanesh right into the warp, right into Slanesh's realm, you would say. Like, they just do it in completely different ways. Like the Eldar, honestly, I don't know what the Eldar do. I guess the Eldar just mind their own business on their craft worlds and like just slowly breed their population back to like a stable health. And they're looking for like a scientific and magical way of like removing the effect of Slanesh on their race. Meanwhile, the Dark Eldar are just doing some weird, messed up stuff throughout the galaxy, regardless of race. They're just torturing people and killing people to like make Slanesh happy and make sure that their soul doesn't get snatched up, which is, I guess, okay. Now, I'm definitely know that I'm going to get a lot of elf fanboys in this comment section, and all I have to say is, you pointy-eared lovers are no real elf girlfriends. go outside, touch some grass. Oh, but they're so technologically advanced. Oh, they're so like, who cares? Who cares? Their population is literally like the size of a few trillion compared, like their population is like a few trillion. Like compare that to like an actual the imperium of mankind. Like one planet has a trillion human beings on it. That's how much that's how much the Eldar suck compared to the imperium of mankind. Like they have one high world, they have like a few high worlds worth of population left in this entire galaxy. So their entire high tech technology literally makes no difference because they don't even have enough people to use that technology. So they're just right back to the start. So like what interesting thing do the elves have that everyone else doesn't? Like everyone else has incredibly high tech technology. Like no one else except the orcs, everyone else has high tech technology. Like everyone else has something sci-fi about them. What new thing are the elves actually bringing into this setting except being elves? And that's just virtue of their existence that they're bringing into the Warhammer setting. Elves are as bland as vanilla ice cream. I mean, in context of the Imperium of Mankind and all the other factions, elves are just boring. I definitely put elves on like the my third least favorite faction. I mean, there's something interesting about them. They're like people migrating from planet to planet and place to place in the galaxy, and they have a literal demon god in taking all of their souls the second they die. So I mean, I guess that is interesting. So they become my third least favorite faction. My least favorite faction I will touch upon in a while. But first, we need to talk about the Necrons. Oh, I like the Necrons. I really like the Necrons. I like their whole color scheme, like this green and black thing. Like this is a really unappreciated color scheme. This is very cool. The whole Egyptian and skeleton thing, and like they're rising out of their tomb slowly and slowly, and the fact that they have enough technology and enough population to like completely destroy the entire galaxy, and the only reason they're not doing it because they're like as divided as the day they were when they were actually flesh and blood. I mean, that's just really cool to me. And also they have literally enslaved godlike beings and they're using them in the war. All, and they have these awesome gauss cannons that literally tear apart a person on a molecular level, like literally disintegrate a person. There's a lot of things to like about the Necrons, and there's like this really creepy aspect to the Necrons that most of the factions don't have. Like Chaos, I guess, is creepy in like the sense that your bodies changes when you give yourself to Chaos, and like these demons are really scary. But now there's like something primal about the Necrons. There's something really scary about a big green and black skeleton chasing you with a giant rifle, and like being inside of one of a Necron's tomb worlds. It was like one of the scariest experiences ever, because it's like Necrons waking up slowly and slowly while you're going deeper and deeper inside the tomb world. Like that's just scary. That's a very interesting point of view, and that makes the Necrons even more interesting. My only complaint is that they're not utilizing the Necrons properly. Like, the Necrons are so cool and overpowered, and the GW just doesn't know how to utilize them. So they have to make up this whole thing with like the banished king or something. The silent king. See how literally generic that is. It's just boring. Like this used to be such an interesting creepy race, and they're just making it more and more boring by adding like these sci-fi generic backstories to everything. Like, oh, who are these Necron? Oh, they're just some flesh dudes who got their souls sucked out. Like all of the creepiness got taken out second they explained that. Like they have to like explain the whole thing of how it happened. Like, they could have left something up to the imagination. They could have left something interesting out so that the people could actually theorize and make up their own stuff about what happened. But no, they just had to like give it all to us. They just spoon feed it all the information to us. Like we Now we know why they're enslaved. They have gods enslaved. Like now we know why they've enslaved gods and stuff. They're just some dudes who they were using to fight these frog dudes. And now, wow, isn't that just interesting? Like all of their mystery and scariness is being removed, and like those are the very things that made the Necrons interesting in the first place. So in a way, they're like removing the flavor from the Necrons entirely for no reason. Like if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like the Necrons used to be interesting and cool. Like, and the more you explain these Necrons, the less interesting and cool they're becoming. So GW should like take a more eldritch horror of approach to these Necrons. Is what I'm saying. Like leave something to the imagination. That way they still remain scary to like the people playing and reading the Warhammer stories. I definitely put Necrons on my top five best races in Warhammer. They're definitely some of the most interesting races in Warhammer. Alright, coming to my least favorite faction in Warhammer 40k, and that is, let's not even waste time. That my least favorite faction is the Tyranids. I just hate the Tyranids. The Tyranids are so uninteresting. The Tyranids are so lame, boring, absolutely flavorless, garbage faction. I mean, do I even need to explain why the Tyranids are so boring? They're just so boring. They just want to eat stuff. That's it. They just want to eat stuff. That's their main function. They just come into the galaxy. They come out. They eat stuff. They come down to the planets. They eat stuff. They go back up to their ships, and then they get stronger, and then they go attack another planet. They eat stuff faster, and just so on, so on, so on, so forth. Like so boring, so boring. Like literally there are no good stories about the Tyranids because the Tyranids are so boring. The Tyranids are always considered like these third degree villains. Like they're just so boring. Like if you have read a book with Tyranids in them, you know that the Tyranids are never like a point of view character, because the Tyranids have no point of view. Their point of view is eating. That's it. That's their point of view. They can't form higher mind functions, because that's not their job. Their job is literally just consume. So in like every other story that the Tyranids are included in, they're just viewed as villains. They're just viewed as like this bug infestation on a planet. So that just literally makes them one thing, which is like being this eldritch abomination of bugs, that just makes them so lame. Because like everyone can take them down. Like the orcs can take down Tyranids, the Necrons can take down Tyranids, the Imperium of Man can take down Tyranids. Everyone can kill Tyranids. Like their so-called fast evolution somehow doesn't make them impervious to every other faction instantly. Like you would think they can just eat at least one member from every faction and just learn all of their strategies and learn everything that they can do and just counter that instantly. But no, that's just not what the Tyranids do. They just brute force everything. They only evolve when the plot demands it, I guess. They only evolve when the creators of Games Workshop want them to evolve. Like it's just boring as hell. Ironically, the Zerg from StarCraft are way more interesting than the Tyranids, because there was like this civil war in the Zerg empire, but there's literally nothing like that in the Tyranids. There is no conflict in the Tyranid faction. There is nothing interesting about the Tyranid faction, except for the fact that we haven't even seen who is controlling these Tyranids in the first place. Like, who is the person controlling these Tyranids, sending them out to attack these galaxy? Like, we don't know. We don't even have that information. So that's why I don't like the Tyranids, and that's why they're my least favorite faction in Warhammer 40k, because they have no motivation. They only have one goal, which is just to eat. I mean, yeah, get it. I get it. You're just bugs that like to eat stuff. Like that's great, but that's really boring. It gets old really fast. And I don't know why people like the Tyranids. I don't like, what do they like about them? Is it the fact that they're like a knockoff of every Starship Troopers bug joke ever? Like literally so boring. Starship Troopers did this like way better. Starship Troopers handled this way better. Like every other f- fictional story you see, or fictional universe that you see with these Tyranid like beings, like the Zerg, like those bugs in Starship Troopers, like those two are way more interesting than the Tyranids, ironically, which is saying a lot about the Tyranids themselves. So yeah, that's why I think the Tyranids are my least favorite faction in Warhammer 40k. Let me know if you like the video. Like, share, and subscribe. Like, this is something new that I was trying to do. Like, I haven't exactly discussed my Warhammer 40k interest on this channel, but I think I'm going to in the future. And yeah, if you want to see more, like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.